In a world where information seems to travel at the speed of light and traffic at a snail's pace, where the agenda of those at the helm doesn't always reflect the pressures on the streets, where the rubber hits the road, where there's queue of issues needing to be interrogated in the name of speaking truth to power.
Welcome to a place at the table,
where we set the agenda,
table the issues that matter to you,
and invite you to take a seat at the table.
Welcome to a place at the table. All over the world, temperatures are rising. It is fair to say that we too have upped the ante here. I'll be speaking on the new wave of global media censorship. Yinka, what do you make of this?
Welcome, Emeka. Good to join you here. Make no mistake, I have a lot to say on the subject. First matters on the home front. I'm saying less ranting, more understanding. It's time to unpack politics.
Unpack politics? How much time do we have, Yinka? Some would say that I'm tampering with Pandora's box, since I'll be speaking on the Dangote Refinery matters arising. Welcome to the table, Dorothy.
Thank you, Funke. It be like say plenty matter go arise. So my topic is as urgent as it is systemic. Let's talk the repeal of the VAP Act from an insider perspective.
Now, this I have time for, Dorothy. However, I can't say that time and resource management or even preparedness is one of our national virtues. I'll be speaking on the floods in Maiduguri and sounding the alarm. Be prepared, a stitch in time.
A case of when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. Or is it, as they say, sink or swim? Stay with us, keep listening. So, today I'll be speaking on the new wave of global media censorship. Recently, the US government, through its Secretary of State, Chief Antony Blinken, announced new restrictions against certain media organizations it accuses of spreading propaganda across the world. The United States Department of Justice a week ago also accused Russia's RT of attempting to influence the upcoming US elections, alleging that RT is fully integrated with Russian intelligence operations around the world. The US State Department launched a global diplomatic campaign to make sure, and I quote, that other countries know the risk associated with RT, seeking to ban the Russian news network and a few other platforms such as Sputnik and Africa Stream it accuses of spreading propaganda. Now, the US may not have a state media, but it does empower news network and other social media platforms in pursuing and indeed achieving its own interests globally. And it indeed is a bit amusing when the US and its news networks do the same thing. We saw it during our 2015 elections. We saw how Western media and social platforms were effectively used to influence narratives across Nigeria. In 2004, the Orange Revolution in Ukraine, in Hong Kong, in Iran, in Georgia, and the list goes on and on. For me, I view this as an extension of the global shift in power and the need to control or at least influence narratives about the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the Israel-Palestinian war, and a bunch of other issues, even now, and especially the BRICS, and the move to ditch the US dollar as a global reserve currency. Today, RT and African Stream have been banned on DSTV, Facebook, and IG, and other media platforms controlled by the West. Even more scary is the fact that those who share views and opinions critical of Western ideals or political views are now being shadow banned on social media. Information, however, it's not a luxury or mere entertainment, but it indeed is a critical component of life that often determines the quality of life, or some may say, even a matter of life and death. It is indeed ironic that the US and other Western countries who were the chief cheerleaders, or who are the chief cheerleaders of press freedom and democracy, are now employing aggressive diplomatic levers to influence global news. It is critical for us in Nigeria, and indeed the whole of the continent, African continent that is, to develop our own media infrastructure, independent of the West, just like the Chinese have successfully done with WeChat, Weibo, and a few other platforms.
This is what happens when you do not hone or harness your own homegrown talent to develop your own whatever platform, to disseminate your own news and create your own kind of protection. All the things that we view as free, this social media, they're not free. They are a means to an end for the countries that make it available for the rest of us. And we will always be beholden to them. whether we like it or not. That's why there will be shadow ban, because you have come on their platform. So it is their rules, and that's what is. So if we even thought that democracy was for everybody, it is as far as it goes to serve their own needs.
Interest,
And once you veer off that, it's not going to work again. So this is the time, or years ago was a time when we should have developed our own platforms to do whatever we need to do for Nigerians and West Africa as a whole.
There's always different narratives to a story. You push the one that you want to be dominant.
Yes.
And you can only do that when you have your own media infrastructure, just as you recommended that. Africa should start having their own media infrastructure. There's too much dependence on whether it's all kinds of media.
Western apparatus structure. And
and even within here, if you sent a reporter, a local reporter, to cover a state event, or state by state, I mean federal or state government, you'll find that there will be preferential treatment for those who are coming from foreign media.
Yes.
Then they would rather give you the exclusive than give the exclusive to local reporters or local media. It's just insane why we do this. And remember when Twitter was banned in Nigeria, the federal government made an attempt to create something close to that, which was a monument, a spectacular
Is it that man said this thing? Let's not even go there.
We're back to Twitter. We have nothing of our own, or whatever is. Now we're back to where we were. Can you imagine the enormous human resources that Nigeria has? I mean, we have people creating Zynox. We have all these people, yet we cannot, organize and have our own biggest black nation in the world. We can't. It's sad.
It's sad, but it's also frightening, as I said, because where we are now, the technology is not ours, so to speak, the platform. So we need to indigenize our technology platforms, because technology controls media, which is why your global technology giants are now media companies. Because we're seeing it. A few weeks ago, I was at some international TV event with content creators, and everybody was there, and we're talking about young people who are making money off the social media platforms. And I said to them, have you considered that if the global politics, this was a couple of weeks ago, were to change, and maybe Nigeria is no longer, maybe Nigeria does a policy that doesn't favor the US, and the US will now say no more Nigerian is allowed on a social, that your revenue, your lost. I mean, who remembers the day that Instagram went off?
It was like it was a blackout.
Yes.
Like the world ended.
I was fine, but Yinka has something to say.
I mean, so my take on this, I mean, just piggybacks on what you, I wrote something here. I said, if you're keen about your perception, you can't be slow on empowering your perspective. Right?
You can repeat that, please.
If you're keen about your perception, right, you cannot be slow on empowering your perspective. And I think that's what it is about. And largely, from wherever you sit, I mean, we're all sitting in 5 different places in this hall. We see completely different things. And I think it's very important that my perspective is pushed out there at all costs. Because I would be very wrong if I don't do that, because clearly you can't see what I see. And how would I be perceived is how I express that perception. And I can never be wrong because I'm sitting here. Perhaps we can switch seats, then I will say what you want to say. So if you look back at it, we have one of the biggest problems of this technology and the media has been servers. The cloud systems. It's not about, we've never had a problem with coders, engineers and so on. No. We build things for other people in other places. Nigerians work in Meta, Nigerians work in Google. Nigerians work everywhere, just like the Indians were everywhere. But you need a certain level of infrastructure. Now, when we start talking about technology, people think technology is just about apps and, massive infrastructure, massive assets supports it. Your CDN, that's your content delivery network, massive assets, real power.
So is it that we can't afford it or we don't?
So for you to build things like that, you're talking about things like AWS. I mean, we've got one or two by 2-3 companies here. There's even one in Lekki, But you need to build things like that. It's on top of things like that you put your app store.
We can afford it now.
It costs a lot.
It costs a lot.
It consumes power. It has to keep running 24/7.
That's it.
We don't have power.
We don't have power.
That's one of the biggest
power.
problems. Think about it as you're putting your CPUs, you're putting 1,000 CPUs together. Everything you're discussing is on a CPU somewhere in Yugoslavia, somewhere in Europe. They are physically somewhere.
The value system of the people that are at the helm of affairs, in Nigeria. Now, that's my concern. It seems as if there's a lot of deliberate attempt to sabotage everything that is put in place because of their personal interest. So I would want to think that we would be willing to take learnings from what is happening elsewhere and create better systems in place that will protect us. But there's still strong efforts to gag different groups of people, amongst other things, and limit creativity and the rest of it. So I'm just wondering how whatever we need here is going to play out in the real sense of it without good leadership in place. And I'm not, when I say good leadership, I mean the power issues that you spoke to, are related to that. The skewed policies that we have around different censorship, the desperation to censor everybody, is all linked to it. So if it looks so limiting on this front, everybody would rather stick to the place where their rights are respected, or where they have some kind of freedom.
And then our stories are rewritten for us.
Oh yeah,
because that's what it means.
Well, so this is my advocacy for this edition. I mean, I don't know, is it that we shape our national identity and narratives, or others will do it for us? It's as simple as that.
Simply put.
I agree. Then there'll be no point crying wolf, since we neglect to act in a timely fashion. Politics unpacked, less ranting, more understanding. In order to encourage a more effective and responsive government, it is crucial for citizens to gain a deeper understanding of how both the civil service and the political offices operate. The general public often overlooks the distinct roles and responsibilities between civil servants and politicians, leading to confusion about what can realistically be achieved in public office. By educating ourselves on these systems, we can build a more informed citizenry and develop the right kinds of talents to serve the country, both in civil service and politics. In Nigeria, there is often a disconnect in public discourse regarding how government functions and how it can be improved. Many comments and debates on public platforms reveal a lack of understanding about the complexities of governance. This is one of the primary reasons great ideas and policies struggle to succeed in our nation. Adaptive problems, which involve navigating complex systems and human behavior, are a reality in every country. In Nigeria, these challenges are amplified by a lack of transparency, poor communication, and the ever-present threat of corruption. However, corruption is not exclusive to civil service or politics. It can be found in various sectors across society. A better understanding of people, management, and bureaucracy is essential, as these factors are often the root causes of inefficiencies and delays in addressing national problems. Personal interest and opaque decision-making processes further complicate these issues, creating gaps between problems and their solutions. My advocacy is to push for widespread education on how the civil service functions, the limitations and possibilities of political office, and how we can address the adaptive problems our nation faces. By building a more informed citizenry, we can nurture future leaders equipped to navigate the complexities of governance and ensure that both the civil service and political systems are optimized for nation building.
Yinka, since we're jamming here for the first time,
Jam.
I will say this. I mean, I've had the privilege of working in government for a couple of years, and it is so important what your advocacy. And I say this because when you sit on the outside, you often think that it go be like this, you know, I'll do this. And you get there and then you just see the bureaucracy, you see the red tape, see the number of hurdles. You have to meet National Assembly people, lobby them, convince them, your own ministers. You spend your day as a Director General. I spent half of my time running between the Villa, National Assembly, and then you have stakeholders and the press.
And then the people that work.
And the people that work with you, their own mindset, you know. And I've said this on this program before. There is often a mindset that is prevalent within the public service of jealousy of people who are succeeding in the private sector. So if for example, someone
came
comes...
from the
yes. Chief Mba, you and this is your company. Okay. They put red tape. They manufacture red tape, you know, to make it more difficult and to almost like the number, what Kate experienced a few days ago with no signs. And then there's a cop waiting for you to extract from you.
Yes. Entrapment.
Entrapment. Yeah.
So people in a public service, they do that. I'll tell you that. It happens quite a bit. But I think the onus lies in government. I wouldn't say this, that we need to do a lot more education. The responsibility, as you said, for people to be aware of how government works, how the public service works, how the civil service works, it's not on the general public.
Yeah.
You can't expect Namdi sitting at home to suddenly be aware of how government functions. It is the responsibility of government itself, perhaps the National Orientation Agency, perhaps the agencies themselves. There's a wonderful thing they do in some countries. I know in the UK, for example, where they require agencies of government that deal with public to publish how, for example, there's something called the rule-making process. You know, so if you can't just wake up and make a rule. What is your process for making that rule?
Nigeria.
So, and people need to know that process. So you need to publish how you interact with members of the public and your critical stakeholders. They need to know. So that it's not, I approach, say, for example, LASMA. And then LASMA says, oh, there's this one, there's this one, there's this one. How does LASMA engage? Its policies for engagement, is it known to the general public? Do we know how they arrive at that fine? That 25,000, that 50,000? Yeah. How did they arrive at it? Was there a conscious effort? While I appreciate that, you know, our public servants, our civil servants rather, I think it was OBJ that called them, should I use that word? Evil servants.
Those people are...
Okay, I'm going to jump in because like Emeka, I worked in the civil service. Good. In fact, all of my career in broadcasting was in the civil service, more than 23 years. So I understand a bit how it works. But I would say this, politicians have taken over both the political office and the civil service.
How so?
How so? Because every day you see a dwindling of professionalism in the civil service. Why? Because it's the same police and the same political office holders who bring people to pollute that space. So whether they're qualified or not, they're dumping people there from their constituencies. And these are people that don't know their left from their right. Eventually they get promoted and they keep getting promoted until then they get there and they really don't have any competence. That's one. You look at political office holders when they get into the ministries, because they become ministers, they become commissioners. When they get there, what do? Do they learn? Do they get orientation about how the civil service works? So you find a Minister of Women Affairs who goes to disrupt an event, holding, personally, physically.
That's a different advocacy. We will.
You know, she goes there. So there is no orientation for these people. Then you find the presidency saying we've given bags of rice to ministers. So you begin to ask yourself.
I've heard politicians argue the same.
Don't get it twisted.
I've heard politicians argue the same as well, because they say they come there for 4 years, but the civil servants have a owner type of mentality.
They do.
So they come barracks go
Yeah, exactly.
They do, but they would. They rub off each other. I think it's a parasitic relationship between them.
Is it parasitic or symbiotic?
No, it's parasitic because they feed off each other. Symbiotic means it will benefit. Parasitic, you are chopping each other. You said lack of transparency. I said check. Poor communication, check. Corruption, check.
My second
opaque
paragraph.
decision making, check.
My
Who
paragraph
then takes
explained
on,
that.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying you are right. And I'm saying who takes on this education? Like Emeka said, it behoves on government to let the people know the structure, rulemaking, how do you arrive by this? Take us through the process because I think they keep forgetting that they are servants, all of them. You come with this, oh, let me help you. This is campaign mode. Then when you enter there, it's a lordship and servant. And you know, servant don't need to know anything. Just set the rules and they obey it, or they will be, dealt with. That's
if the civil servants even know the rules.
I'm not talking about servants. I'm talking about we the people. Civil servants are evil. I've worked with them. They are evil. I said those people have a cartel. I have worked.
We have been.
I worked as special assistant to the governor of Cross River State. The man of the bombastic budget. So I know what I saw in that office, the liaison office in Lagos. I know what those civils are. They have a vice on the system. They have their way.
Grip.
And I saw Wayne. So after 4 years, I said thanks. I've done my bit.
Do we think about like a citizen solutions where we can continue sharing our experiences? Maybe if we did that more often, we would be able to spotlight a lot of places and then actually take them on. Because I've seen that when we shed light, for instance, the way monies are disbursed and all those kind of things, and then the attitude towards the people when demolitions need to occur, amongst other things, this brings us back to the rulemaking processes and all of that. So can the citizens now drive a system, put a system in place to hold different people accountable, share experiences? How much do you get your meter when you need to get your meter? What does the law say? What is in practice? If we speak more, then more would happen. We cannot NGO ourselves out of it because NGOs are taking the place of the National Orientation Agency, and that's real.
And that's on period.
That's on period.
Let's not confuse complaining with nation building. Make hay or explore other sources of energy whilst the sun shines. Abi? Okay.
Yinka, is that not the sun I see setting up? Finally, history has been made. A local refinery now works in Nigeria, about 25 years after the major refineries stopped working, and with about $25 billion spent by successive governments to pay salaries, emoluments, and for turnaround maintenance. Congratulations, Nigeria. Those government-owned major refineries are still like the promise of rain in a desert never seen. Three things emerge from this development: other energy options, the CNG, and the traffic snarl on Ekpe Expressway. One, the hopes of Nigerians for cheaper fuel is dashed. Nigerians feel shortchanged, and I know that there's a promise of cheaper fuel in October. Nevertheless, it's time to make concrete alternative arrangements. It's time to critically consider alternatives to fossil fuel. Make way, ladies and gentlemen, for solar-powered gadgets, electric cars, and CNGs. Now, Nigeria's PMS-dependent economy developed because of the failure of electricity supply. The Presidential Compressed Natural Gas Initiative, PCNGI, has signed separate deals with 75 conversion firms nationwide. And that's part of government's policy to reduce the national addiction to petrol and diesel. There are now 55 CNG fueling stations in Nigeria, grossly inadequate for a population of more than 250 million. The Minister of Steel Development, Prince Shaibu Haudu, said the ministry will meet a minimum of 1 million compressed natural gas CNG vehicles on the road by 2027. 1 million CNG conversion in 3 years? The other day, Lagos State launched electric cars. What has become of them? Because I'm yet to hear of other states with such an initiative. Now, here are my recommendations. State governments need to support the creation of alternative energy for this nation. Clearly, the federal government will need that support. Lagos State government should revisit its electric cars. Now we will need more charging points. And finally, Lagosians living along the Lekki-Ekpe corridor have my sympathy.
Hello.
Were pipelines not built alongside the Dangote Refinery, 300 trucks on that long stretch will be another Apapa in the making. Rail is the second most popular mode of transporting oil. I suppose it's time to construct one for Dangote Refinery. At least Lagos State has plans for people in that axis. But before it becomes reality, my sympathy, Lekki people.
Hey, you know what I wrote? I was reading, and I'm glad you brought this advocacy. I said that we are dancing and cheerleading because a private individual ventured into a business that will serve the nation is quite interesting. What happened, or what has happened to our other refineries, PH, Warrior, they have been abandoned. How many times did they say Port Harcourt will be ready? I think the pushback has been so much. And for me, the whole drama, which of course has played out on social media, is the DM for price between Dangote and NNPC. Nobody, DM for price. If you want to know the price, DM for price. It's DM for price now. Yes, if you don't want to say DM, we will send you the price, because I don't understand. Dangote has enjoyed a lot of largesse from the Nigerian government, but he's also a businessman.
It is.
So, but I believe strongly that there is a chokehold on him somewhere in the corner, not to undermine what the government has done, so that it doesn't come across as if the government hasn't done their bit. So that's why he's not putting out the price, and that's why there's so much and it's so embarrassing, to be honest. And then people say, we're going to show you document. I'm going to say, release now. We know it's crazy, but Nigerians, expensive fuel is here, and just get on with it.
I think that, I just, your recommendations, the first one is on that corridor. Already that corridor is choked.
Yes.
And then you now have 300 trucks. There's a meme I saw online talking about people when they were selling land. They said, very close to Dangote Refinery.
Somebody said,
how do you even use that to sell anything?
Had a refinery with gas and everything,
it used to be the golf course before, then it changed to Dangote.
So I just think that, and this is again the thing, how governments work.
Exactly.
You're building a refinery. For those of us who do a little bit of regulatory economics or regulatory policy management, there's a thing that you always talk about, which is the cost of it. The cost of, not the cost the cost to consumers, the cost to other stakeholders, the cost, your impact assessment.
Yeah, exactly. Feasibility and impact assessment.
Dangote will do his own. But Lagos State government or should do their own about what does it, 300 trucks, how are you going to move them? And that's the least. Tomorrow there can be 600. Of course. Is there, what's the alternatives?
Yes. Deploying trucks.
Yes.
What about
when they allow?
So what happens to people living on that axis?
Nobody cares.
That's not done. The other thing about CNG is, I think is one of the most fantastic things that this government is doing. Look, in Brazil, almost 100% of their vehicles runs on CNG.
And China.
China, the same thing. India, it's there's pipe to petrol to the CNG petrol stations. Or you go to a petrol station, you have an alternative for either buying fossil fuel or CNG. I think it has to happen because really, 70% of the fuel we consume goes to commercial vehicles, transporters. And even Dangote himself, I don't know how many of you know that, Dangote, Lafarge, all his trucks are CNG.
They are CNG?
All of them.
You can only get that in Benin.
All of them are CNG. So, yes, it's building a refinery is good, but I think government should, push more. And this is the thing about communicating, this thing about CNG. Communicate. Let it be like we're drowning in that message.
I think Nigeria is at a point where you need as much haphazard, if you wish to even use that word, movement and executions from entrepreneurs. You need people who just feel like, they can't sleep. if
Like
they
I
don't
have
solve a
some
problem.
loose $50 billion lying around.
So really, it's not usually even about money. It's about people who just want to solve problems. Because you have so much problem.
Okay, so Dangote has solved this problem.
So Dangote has solved that problem, and everybody can play catch up with it. Okay. And the good thing is this, for Lagos State government, I have heard they have something called the call-up system for the 300 trucks. You know, which goes back to my advocacy. I have met immensely brilliant people that work in government. But from outside, often people think everybody that works in government are silly people.
Let's see them now.
How are they going to solve
So there's
this
a call-up system, right? All 300 trucks are not going to move at the same time. There's a call-up system already.
Why
the
are
Lagos
they not
State,
telling us about
it
this
is
plan?
there. You just have not read it.
No, but
they're not speaking about it enough.
No. It's not about speaking about it. It is a system in which it will work. Meaning that on Mondays, I don't know how they've planned it. X number
Even
of
you
trucks
don't know, but you know they've.
No, but I saw it.
So
I saw it.
So
that's the thing. So the point is not
effective communication.
No, hold on. One
You
last
just
thing.
advocated for communication.
One last thing. It is
thing.
not as important for you to know how it will work as it working. So the point is that
Agreed.
If by next week 300 trucks do not flood that road, perhaps it's working.
Yeah, but it will also help. Remember the time we used to have even numbers and odd number
But you
cars?
don't drive a truck. It's for the people that drive the truck. They
I
follow
know, but people should know now.
And so.
Why would you not communicate to the people? I know you might think it's of no importance, but I think
I think that's the whole thing about government, and that's the sad problem. Whether it's this administration or the previous ones, they've all suffered from the same thing. Which is they've all suffered from the same thing, which is this thing that should be where government they will
that is there.
There's a lot of insensitivity.
Carry people along.
And one thing is important at this point, and I'm speaking from the point of view of people who are not as enlightened about
as all of us.
I read it on Twitter.
Wherever you got it from, that's privilege.
Yeah.
So people who are not as privileged as you are. And my question is, how do these things impact on the health of everyday people? Blood pressures are going up. The people cannot afford basic fuel. So you can imagine if you need to get to one place or the other, how do you get across? And then everybody is worried. Who is making any attempt to keep blood pressures down where the prices are coming up? That's the insensitivity that needs to be addressed. There is a strong link, between all of this. And it comes back to who is the leader and how sensitive it is. You can't, I always say something, you can't plait my hair or shave my hair without my head. You understand? So you're doing all these things, but it's not affecting, you're not considering how it affects me. I think that is not leadership enough. And so it comes back to the communication. How well do people know what your plans are for them? How do they trust you? And then for the CNG things, I've heard a lot of ordinary Nigerians say, we don't trust that, it's going to blow up.
Explode.
Exactly.
How do you communicate that? Yes.
Who is doing the communication? Okay. On the national news every day, we should be seeing these advocacies. We should be seeing
Pidgin, different languages going out.
National Orientation Agency, I heard it on.
Who is collecting the salaries in the National Orientation Agency, and what are they doing? What is the justification for salaries to be paid in National Orientation Agency? I'm still not aware.
Okay, what we have not talked about is the number of CNG conversions that will have been done in 3 years.
It's not enough.
1 million in 3 years in a country of 250 million. I think we should get more companies doing the conversion. 75 companies are not enough, as I see it.
The government has offered that. The government has offered that
this may be some
has offered that all the what do you call it now? Commercial. Yeah, exactly. It's free conversion.
It's free for them.
So
Yes. But then, because of this dollar thing, we need to start.
I want to convert my truck because it guzzles like a lot of fuel.
So you come and tell
elite conversion.
No, conversion is conversion. Even my bike.
Well, if we don't talk about it, it doesn't go away. Conversation paves the way for action.
Certainly, Funke. We must talk and we must act. Citizenship ought to be an active word. Why we must challenge the repeal of the VAP Act, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015. Now, 1 in 3 Nigerians aged between the ages of 15 to 49 years old has experienced physical violence. 1 in 4 girls below 15 years of age has experienced sexual violence. 1 out of 3 women experience violence from their partners, including husbands and boyfriends. Now, across their lifetime, 1 in 3 women, or around 736 million individuals, are subjected to physical or sexual violence by an intimate partner or sexual violence from a non-partner. 1 out of 100 sexual assaults is brought to trial, and a very few result in convictions. Now, these figures have remained consistent over the past decade. I am a survivor of violence who has experienced these. And in my course of work, I've handheld over 5,000 victims and survivors to navigate the access to justice space. And why is it important to do this? So victims I would classify as people who have been exposed to trauma, and survivors as people who have started getting some kind of support on the pathway to justice, right? The reality is more disheartening than promising. Harmful normative practices such as virginity testing, corrective rape, marital rape, forced isolation from family and friends, forced financial dependence, abandonment of dependents, violence by state actors, and political violence are on the rise. This has left more people in search of justice. Now, this situation is so dire that many survivors are on the suicide watch list and self-harm watch list. And this has been growing since 2018, with majority of those on our watch list, being minors who are people under the age of 18. Now, the implementation of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, or VAP, is a beacon of hope for many victims and survivors of violence like myself. The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act has helped at least 35 states to refine state laws to domesticate this, despite facing major pushbacks in some states like Imo State, where it was called the abortion law, to make sure it doesn't go through. Now, NAPTIP, which houses the VAP, has secured not less than 7 convictions through the VAP and has a lot of active cases in court currently. The National VAP report published by NAPTIP proves this. The Act only needs amendments and not a repeal. A repeal will derail all efforts at implementation and will set us back so many years, posing a threat to the lives of everyone in Nigeria, like everyone. Everyone needs to reach out to their senators and House of Reps members to ensure that they only support an amendment or a review, not a repeal.
I'll be the first to say this, and I'll say this with regards to Lagos State.
I was just going to say,
I think Lagos State is doing a fantastic job.
Yes.
I mean, we criticize Lagos all we want, but there's certain things that Lagos with the DVR that they're doing well.
That's why many people say Nigeria is Lagos and other states.
Yes, I mean, one has to say it, because even how they monitor social media.
Yes,
and
they respond.
Yes.
Whoever heads that,
Lola.
I mean, we have to give kudos. We have to give kudos to her, because, and I think that should be the standard, the benchmark for how other states should work. Look, when I first heard of this news, this attempt to repeal this, I just thought, again, this is, to sort of hacking to what Yinka says, Yinka's advocacy. You have people in government or in positions of political power who don't even understand the responsibility and how the thing works. Because it sounds so, but honestly, I think maybe one of the things that has to be done by this television station, not just this show, but this station and other media houses, is to actually begin to take this advocacy,
make it an agenda
on all the media houses, especially television and radio stations.
Like I said, one out of 3 women. That is so scary.
So there's 3. One out of 3.
That's 1 out of 3 of us.
It's alarming.
And I said,
scary.
Lawmakers who are enable makers and the lawbreakers, because if you even viewed a woman as a human being,
thank you,
it wouldn't grow. And they have wives, they have
and
girls,
they have daughters,
they have, that's what they have children, they have, and
mothers.
it is so annoying when even the lawmakers still objectify women and see them as nothing more than, oh, this thing is too much. Why are they giving them all of these? Please, let's change everything. And then they will change everything. The next set of assembly, people will come. Then we start all over again. Not minding all of the work that has gone in, the research, the documentation, the data. I mean, this is where I play. This is my playground. This is where my anger will not go away, will not cease. And that is why, on what you said, Lagos State, yes. And I've always said it, never wasted time to give them kudos on their sexual assault mandates and all that they do. Lola, well done. Thank you, Justice Raman Oshodi, for, when you look at the veracity of the evidence before you, you make a pronouncement. It's life.
First, let me commend your recommendation that everyone should speak to their reps and senator at the National
Bombard
Assembly.
them.
Okay, so the sex offenders register, I hear that is going to be expunged.
Oh, yes. So yes, the new recommendation has taken out the part of the current verb where it's called dangerous sex offenders should be registered. So if we now have something that removes that piece of should I call it direction, for people to remember that that is a thing to do. How then do people feed the National Sex Offender Database? What becomes of the efforts made to put it in place, and how do we sustain it? It's important. It has been important. And so all these things directly feed into this mischievous attempt at repealing the VAP.
What about femicide? Is it in the VAP law?
It's not there as femicide, but there's so many things that point to femicide that are there. Okay. 3 days ago, I was talking with a group of teenagers that are in our shelter, and several of them said they wish they were never born, and they don't see reason to continue staying on earth. And they say things to me like, it's only because of you, because we've gotten to meet you, that we're still hanging in there. During the lockdown, I was arrested for impersonating essential service provider because of what I do. And so at the end of the day, it tells me that the government does not understand the importance of how what we do
is so important.
Lives. At this point in time, that is the beacon of hope. That is the streak of hope for many survivors of violence, who are not only female. They are men, they are women, they are boys, and they are girls.
Thank you very much for this. I'll try to make this as short as possible, and this is really fantastic. And I just throw that back quickly to what I mentioned earlier about adaptive, problems. Sometimes there's always a way to get this done. If you need these chairs out of this room, call people who are strong enough to carry it, go through that door, take it out from there, then come back and take the next one. That's the very, But you now begin to find out that, in this culture, women don't carry chairs. Or something don't carry something. Or if a chair is black, it doesn't go through that type of door. Those are some of the biggest problems that we're facing. Cultural problems. And I think that we can, take care of a lot of these things also from a cultural point. The law is the edge of the law, where the law acts, where the police come in, where the legal, whatever, where it decides what to do to the person. Now, before you get to the point where the edge of the law meets with the offender, a lot of things have happened. And a lot of adaptive things have happened in that area. A lot of cultural things have happened in that area. I'll give you an example of a story I heard recently of some guy who contracted HIV. And the moment he did, they laid him off work. He was a teacher in a school. Where he lived, they told him you can't use the bathroom, you can't use the toilet again.
Recently?
No, this was a long time. This man has lived with HIV for 31 years, right? So he did that. Then finally, his wife and his kids left him.
So he was ostracized.
Completely. Now, if you look at that, the people who are going to enforce the law, that is a chain in which they exist. The people who are going to become your senators and your House of Reps, that is a chain in which they exist. Yes. There are people like you and I who will say repeal or amend. And they are coming from the backdrop of culture.
There's a provision of the Act that advocates for abolition of harmful traditional practices. And so that's that one, that the act is sufficient for us.
Yes.
With the virginity testing, during holiday periods, people are still inserting eggs into their children to know if they are virgins. As far as I'm concerned, that is rape by family members. And it is still a thing. Every holiday period, we still get this.
But you know that this thing will not come into effect until somebody reports this thing.
Yes, people report, and then we need the law enforcement to be in line with us and ensure that, just like the war against female genital mutilation is, we're able to call out crimes by family. Crimes perpetrated on vulnerable people like children by family. And that's why this law should not be touched. You know, passive citizenship is out of fashion. You're either on the table or you're on the menu. Right, Kate?
See, Dorothy, you are so right.
Yes.
I know which I'd rather be. I'll not be on anybody's menu. My heart goes out to those whose homes, villages, and businesses have been ravaged by flood in Maiduguri from the Alau Dam. It is being viewed as an impact of an environmental disaster. But knowing the Nigeria that we live in, I would rather not blame the environment for this terrible mishap. I recently watched 2 videos. One was of the people in a boat with a man among them just throwing a loaf of bread each to each household across to the people in their homes. And the other was the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, who visited the Maiduguri to evaluate the situation and express his sympathy to the people and their governor, Babagana Zulum, who was right beside him. They were waving, and yes, of course, the people waved back. Reports, however, indicate that it's been 2 years at least since the people of Maiduguri had raised an alarm on the water level in the dam and its imminent collapse. The rains did not also help the situation up there. A delegation from the governor had gone to assess the dam in the first week of this month and stated, despite the high water level in the river which led to overflow, conditions do not pose a severe threat to the city and that all necessary measures were put in place to control the situation. The SSG went on to declare Maiduguri is safe. Some days after the supposed downplay, the dike, which is an embankment constructed to prevent flooding, collapsed. This happened in the night stroke, the wee hours of the morning. This is despite receiving 816 million ecological funds, 816 million naira ecological funds within the first 6 months of this year, which would have facilitated the Alau Dam repairs. According to the National Emergency Management Agency, 1 million people have been displaced, and this could rise to double the number, not to mention resultant illnesses and disruption to economic activities. Yet, those voted in to lead the people give themselves a pat on the back for doing the barest minimum and want to appear like saviors of a situation that could evidently have been averted. When we fail to plan, we inevitably plan to fail.
I think that why I'm always the first to.
No, it's good. Go ahead.
Yinka, I'll start with Yinka. Or do you want to go?
Okay, let me go as the oldest man here.
Oh, please, don't go there.
Well, this is really no laughing matter.
No, it's not.
It is. I saw the pictures and the videos from that incident, and it happened at 4 a.m. in the morning. People were asleep, and people got swept away. I have many friends from Maiduguri, many dear, close friends of mine who lost everything. And just able to, the fact that they're even alive. I mean, they lost so many friends and other family friends. It's a tragedy. And like you said, I think that the thing with Nigeria, or the tragedy of Nigeria, is that we don't punish people for negligence.
Yeah. We don't hold people accountable.
Yes, we don't hold people accountable.
Enough.
So you hear of, there was a prison break, thousands of people escaped.
Who was
nobody was punished for that. Nobody resigned. Nobody resigned. Nobody. You hear there's a road bridge collapse. There's everything. We're just carrying on like that. You hear of, so not holding people responsible for things that
was under their
actions or inactions
creates this environment for such environmental disasters to occur. Because, you know, if you understand the importance of that dam, there should be monthly checks on it to check the water level.
They checked. They said
To check the water level, to check the integrity of the earth holding the dam in place, whether it needs to have further concrete barriers, what should be done, and reports written. But you know, we don't see these things, and when people talk about it,
But
they say,
people
"Oh no."
complained.
Well, evidently, the complaints didn't lead to any action.
They went to check. They said it's okay.
And this
Sometimes
is the
I
same Borno
think
again.
that maybe the government allows this because they want to regulate the population of this country.
Well, that's another angle.
That's a
I'm
theory.
saying that in a cheeky way, you know.
To
I'm
see
being
hundreds
cheeky.
of millions of people die.
No, I'm being cheeky about it because,
Yeah, because
on a
what other
good day,
reason is it?
What
you
else,
will
yeah.
take care of your citizens.
Yes.
Somebody took 816 million naira in the first 6 months of this year to take care of that dam, to maintain
To take
that
care
dam.
of the ecological.
The ecological fund money. Where did you go to?
Exactly.
Are we going to probe this 816 million naira? No.
What about the other money is being donated now? Plenty monies are pouring in, you know.
The First Lady donated 500 million naira. It was in the news yesterday. Other people have been donating.
And
Is there
international
accountability for all of these monies? How will they be judiciously used?
Lord.
Now, this Aloha Dam didn't just exist yesterday. The dike collapsed. Dikes don't just collapse. They give you signs.
Sign.
Who were the people in charge of the maintenance? Are they going to be prosecuted for the loss of lives? No. 1 million people have been displaced. Do they matter to the country, to the federal government, really? Do they?
I think we should go back to why people don't resign when things like this happen, or why people don't get fired.
Why you don't think
Is
you're
it resign or
responsible?
fired? Because they are two different.
Both, because if you resign, it's because you value the job, you value your place in the job. If you're fired, it's
Nobody
because...
resigns.
Yes, nobody resigns. If you're fired, it's because your boss knows that, understands the value that role should take and why you are unfit for it. And that's why they ask you to leave. And I think it also cumulates back to value for life itself.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's the bare minimum.
That's where it is.
that's
Because
the
if you
thing.
look at dams, I did my IT and in one of the dams in Nigeria, and I worked there. It's a complex structure. It's not something that was built by a few bricklayers around the world.
Yeah, it's not just a bridge.
It's not just. It's massive. It's if you see it.
Hence the amount of money.
And not just the
Sent
amount
there.
of money. Hence the amount of
expertise that
safety.
should be
Measures.
deployed.
Measures.
Be there.
And these are
Technical
not safety
expertise that should
measures
be deployed.
that you will look and say, this wall won't break. No. They do testing for the kind of concrete before they build dams.
Yeah.
Several levels of testing because it needs to withstand
Concrete,
One of
iron,
the-
everything. All
one
the
of the most
materials.
dangerous things that can, when it's in motion, is water.
Water.
Exactly.
One of the most dangerous things
Water,
ever.
fire.
No,
Water is more than
Water.
fire.
Water. So when you look at it, it's across our systems. Even in private businesses, when somebody does something wrong, the next person says, let him not say it's me that said, and suddenly that business will crumble.
'Cause it
Then
becomes a
we'll all be
culture.
out of a job.
Yes.
You know, so it goes back to my, advocacy about culture, about value for life. And yes, the government can say, do this. And they should and they must. Because it's the same people we're sending back into those governments.
It comes back to what I
So they
said.
must.
Do we have professionals in the civil service?
I believe there are.
They've all been flushed out. We
Dorothy,
just have all kinds of people.
I think there are, but for me, we're back to Maiduguri again. As a member of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign, I remember citizens in Borno crying about different things and they were not taken serious.
Yeah.
Then eventually, years down the line, we had a lot of humanitarian aid pouring in and people talking about, mental health and everything. So what is in place before crisis? including the response system or the way of assessing complaints by citizens and acting on them. And then again, I fear for the people who are saying we have been speaking about it since, especially because speaking up about what hurts you or what is hurting you can earn you treasonable felony slammed on you these days. I fear for the whistleblowers who are saying we have been speaking about these things. And, you know, this comes back to balancing what kind of leadership is at play. You know, it's not just that people spoke and nobody answered. The question is, okay, while nobody answered, do people trust that you're going to take action? Most likely no. And since they don't trust you're going to take action, what else can they do?
What else can they do?
So, where's the hope? And
I think they have this new, is it a cancer center there that they just built? So I don't know, do you know about it? They have this new hospital that they built.
There's a lot of new things that are there. New equipment,
everything. That is
There's a lot of new things that are there.
And that was for your benefit as a government.
There's a lot of new things that are there that have gone. And so, where do are we going to talk about how much overinflation is going to of figures is going to be done to replace those things, or you know, what is the definition of humanity in the systems being deployed, you know, to provide humanitarian aid, because it's a humanitarian crisis that is happening there.
I think humanity does not even count. They don't think they're doing, and I think they're doing the people a favor. The people who are doing the supposed humanitarian stuff feel they're better than the ones who are, because they are in the boats. The people
feel they're superior.
Yeah. It is sink or swim. Rise to the challenge or be overwhelmed, like I am, like we are. Remember, as you rise, we will stand with you. Join us again at the table where we address the issues that matter to all of us. Till then, it's goodbye from all of us too.
Goodbye.
Bye.